what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, Samson Dauda did a guest posing in Brazil, and I believe this is his first time ever doing a guest posing in Brazil. So Samson here obviously is just fresh off of the Arnold Classic second place finish to Derek Lunsford. The first time in a long time that a reigning Mr. Olympia was defeated outside of the Olympia. So he's still looking pretty good here. The Arnold was just a few weeks ago, actually just a couple of weeks ago. And one thing I still don't understand when I was watching this, why do these bodybuilding shows, as soon as Samson starts posing, they turn on like strobing club lights? I don't know why anybody doing a show or any kind of guest posing seminar or whatever, you want to see the guy pose. You don't need the strobing lights. I don't get it. I felt like I was going to have a seizure watching this thing, but Samson looks really impressive. He looked really impressive at the Arnold too. I just don't think he was as sharp as Derek, and I think Derek just didn't fade, and Samson did. And Samson is one of these guys that I would imagine looks a lot more impressive at a guest posing than the average bodybuilder because he is so big. So when you see him, he's not one of the shorter guys. He's a guy he's big, tall, he's got stage presence, and when he's not in season, he's 330 pounds. Granted, he's probably not close to that here, but he's probably definitely over 300 pounds in this video. But what we do know about Samson at this point is that he said he's taking a break, and it sounds like we're probably not going to see him again until the Olympia as far as on stage competing. So guest posings like this are probably really the only glimpses that we're going to get of Samson, if he even does any more, until the Olympia. And I would imagine the same would be true for both Derek and Hadi. I don't think we're going to see any of the three of them outside of the Olympia again until the Olympia later this year. But we're kind of used to seeing Samson compete in a bunch of random shows throughout the year. He's one of the few guys recently, in addition to obviously winning the Olympia in 2024, but being a top Olympian for the past couple years, he's one of the very few top Olympians that has consistently competed throughout the year and did more shows than just the Olympia. So it's going to be a little bit of a change up for us not to see him. So it kind of begs the question, as we start building towards the Olympia later this year and going through this contest season and seeing more and more guys qualify for the Olympia, has the conversation now shifted? What is the general consensus after the Arnold Classic? Is everybody talking about Derek now? It seems pretty split from what I've seen in the comments. Is everybody talking about Derek as the favorite going into the Olympia, or is everybody talking about Samson? You know, there's that old saying in bodybuilding that you're only as good as your last show. And even though Samson won the Olympia in 2024, I think the thing that's going to be fresh on everybody's minds is the last show, which I think for both Derek and Samson will have been the Arnold Classic where Derek beat Samson. But then again, nothing is really predictable with bodybuilding, and even basing future shows off prior shows isn't a foolproof method in predicting anything, because look at what happened in Classic Physique at the Arnold with Logan Franklin placing top 2, arguably almost winning that show. But if you went on his Olympia placings, which was the last time you saw him on stage, he's outside of the top 10 and kind of outside of the conversation going into this show, and still until we started seeing the updates and how impressive he looks. So my question for you guys is, if you are a Samson Dauda fan, did the Arnold change anything for you when you're thinking about the Olympia? Or is Samson still the favorite? He's the defending champ, and he's still the guy to beat. Or did Derek impress you enough that you're now viewing Derek as the favorite, and now Samson has to come better than ever to knock Derek out after what we saw from Derek at the Arnold? And I think this is such a unique conversation, because I think all the years that I've been making videos, we've never had this discussion going into an Olympia where the reigning Mr. Olympia was defeated before the next Olympia. So it's never been a discussion leading up to an Olympia, well, what about the guy that beat Mr. Olympia? Now, granted, the Olympia title has changed hands a lot over the past half a decade. We've had a lot of different champions. But after that champion won, you weren't seeing them get defeated outside of the Olympia until maybe the next Olympia. And I think especially now that we're in an era where the title is changing hands pretty frequently, it's even less unlikely that Derek could come back and win this year and take the title from Samson. Because you think about how many different Mr. Olympia champs you've had in the past 6 or 7 years. Sean Roden, Brandon Curry, Big Ramy. You could even include Phil Heath before Sean Roden, but Hadi Chupin, Derek Lunsford, now Samson Dauda. We're not even talking about a 10-year span of time, and think about how many times that title has changed hands. It's certainly not impossible that it could change hands again. Or maybe you're in a totally different camp entirely, and you've got a third opinion that neither Derek or Samson is going to win, and maybe you have Hadi, maybe you have Nick, maybe you have Martin. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, next up in the news, Phil Heath on the latest episode of the Cutler Cast has revealed the answer to the question that a lot of people had after seeing Brandon Curry was doing the Masters Olympia. The question was asked to Phil if he was doing the Masters Olympia, and he 100% shut it down, not only saying he's not doing it, but he also definitively said, "I'm not coming back," followed by "no Masters Olympia for me." So while we still see Kai Green teasing a comeback, and we know that Brandon Curry is locked into the Masters, if you had hopes of seeing Phil Heath step back on stage this year or any time in the future, Phil is again definitively saying he's not coming back. And I'm interested to see how this whole Masters Olympia thing actually shakes out, because like I said, last year they didn't even do a Masters Olympia. They brought it back in 2023, and that's when Kamal El Gargni won, but it didn't really have the best turnout as far as like star-studded big names, and I don't think it had the best fan reception either, that first Masters Olympia that they brought back in 2023. So they skipped it in 2024. They're bringing it back again this year. They've got Brandon Curry in there, which is about as big of a name as you can get. I mean, he's a recent former Open Mr. Olympia. But I really do wonder if they would incentivize guys, and by incentivize, I mean potentially pay them, give them guaranteed money to do the show. Now that we know Phil's not doing it, who knows about Kai, but big names like that, why not, pay them or incentivize them to come back and do a show like that? I mean, if turnout was the issue last time around, then they got to do something different this time if they want bigger names. Especially the fact that it's being held in Japan. So again, it's not the same weekend as the regular Olympia. It's not the same state, not the same country. It's overseas, and it's not like a close country. It's definitely out of the way. And I can just see a possibility of them running into the same issue this year as far as the popularity of this show. Because if you don't have a competitive lineup, Brandon Curry is going to dominate this thing. If he's the only top Olympian, the only big name, the only former Open Mr. Olympia competing in this show, I mean, he's hands down going to win this thing. Which is cool and exciting, but you want to see a battle at the same time. Plus, Brandon's only 41, so he's at like the very lower end of that age cutoff, so he's got the age advantage. He'll be like one of, if not the youngest guys competing in the Masters Olympia. But one thing we do know for sure is you're not going to be seeing Phil Heath at that show. Now, next up in the news, I wanted to talk a little bit more about men's physique. I think this topic has been very interesting, especially with the whole Arnold thing, going back and forth with Ali Bilal, the guy that won the Arnold Classic men's physique division. In this video, I want to talk specifically about the prize money. So we already talked about the back and forth that, Arnold made several statements over the course of the weekend saying he wasn't a big fan of the fact that the guys have to wear these swimsuits that cover their entire legs, and he even suggested, shortening them or just showing more of the leg or having a more traditional posing trunk, because he said he thought the guys, you could tell they had good legs and they should be able to have them judged. Now, Ali, the guy that won, he took offense to this, and then he boycotted the Arnold, saying he's never going to do another one because of what Arnold said, and he felt disrespected. And there were several other men's physique guys that kind of stepped up after that and agreed with him and kind of had his back. But another conversation that Ali brought up that I thought was really interesting, and he talked in depth about this on the Men's Physique Radio podcast, was the amount of prize money. Now, prize money has been certainly a hot button topic over the past couple of years, because we've seen the prize money for men's open bodybuilding really skyrocket at the high level. Shows like Mr. Olympia, shows like the Arnold Classic. It's been really amazing to see what the prize money has gone to in just a couple of years. But the fact is, the other divisions have really been lagging behind that. They haven't really had the same jumps in those other categories. Now, granted, the Arnold did have like a 10x prize money jump for Classic Physique. It was like $5,000 one year and like 60 the next year. It may have even been 70 for first place. But in this Men's Physique radio podcast, Ollie is talking about how the Arnold Classic prize money was $25,000 for first place in Men's Physique. Obviously, that stands in stark contrast to Men's Open Bodybuilding, which got $500,000 for first place. Now, he also said that I don't fully understand this part because I'm sure there's some kind of laws or regulations that caused this, but he is from another country, and he said by the time he gets the money, it's only about $1,400 of that $25,000 because I guess they pay the taxes on it before they send it to him. But then he says that other shows he's done, and I believe he specified that they were European shows, they just handed him a check and he went to the bank and cashed them for the full amount of whatever the prize money was supposed to be. Now, I'm sure whatever the taxation thing is, it's not something that the Arnold can get around. I'm sure it's something that they have to do, and that's why they do it. But still, the point still stands, even if it were the full $25,000, which he would have to pay taxes on if he lived here anyway. That's only about 5%, if I'm doing that math right. 5% of the prize money that the Men's Open guys got at the Arnold. Now, if you go to the Olympia prize money, so basically every division except Men's Open Bodybuilding got $50,000. Keon Pearson winning 212 got $50,000 for first. Andrea Shaw for the Miss Olympia got $50,000 for first. Ryan Terry, so Men's Physique, got $50,000 for first. Classic Physique, Chris Bumstead, $50,000 for first. Bikini, $50,000. Women's Figure, $50,000. Women's Fitness, $50,000. Women's Physique, $50,000. Women's Wellness, $50,000. So it looks like it was $50,000 across the board for first place at the Olympia. Then, of course, you know, for Men's Open, they bumped it up to $600,000. So still, even 10x all the other divisions is still a pretty big disparity. Now, to be honest, I do agree that at the second biggest competition in the world, the Arnold Classic for Men's Physique, I think it should be more than $25,000. But I don't agree that it should be as much as Men's Open Bodybuilding. I think there should be a gap between the two. Granted, a 95% gap does seem a little bit of a vast disparity. But I think there's two arguments here. I think the main argument in support of Men's Physique is that it is by far the most popular, at least on the men's side. It seems to be the most popular by far on the amateur level as far as NPC entries. It seems like that's what the most people compete in. So the argument is that's bringing in a ton of money to the promoters, a ton of money to the league, and having a pro Men's Physique division at your show is kind of that's the goal of all these guys that are competing in the NPC. So there should be more money. Now, I think the argument for Men's Open Bodybuilding is, even though there's not as many people competing in bodybuilding at NPC shows, is that Men's Open Bodybuilding is what sells tickets. That's what puts asses in seats, so to speak. I agree that certainly Men's Physique is putting a lot of money in the promoters' pockets, a lot of money in the NPC's pockets. It certainly is a massive division at the amateurs, but I think the reason why it is because it's the most accessible men's division, and you're talking about amateur competitors. So most people feel able to do Men's Physique. I don't think that also translates to most people would pay to watch Men's Physique. And I don't even think shows like the Arnold or the Olympia are the problem here. I think the bigger problem is what Ollie pointed out, like some of the, just random pro shows that he's done. He said he would take home like $1,300 for winning a pro show in Men's Physique, and I think that's more where the disparity lies. Because I think, honestly, the $50,000 at the Olympia for Men's Physique, I think is actually pretty good. I think that's a pretty good top prize considering they've got that for every other division, and Men's Physique is getting the same as Classic. Men's Open Bodybuilding is getting the most because that's, well, for one, it's the division that's been around the longest. That's like the staple of the Olympia. That's like their crown jewel. So it's had more time to exist and increase that money. All these other divisions are really relatively very new. Most of them in the last 10 years or so were created, whereas men's open bodybuilding's been around for 60. So for that division to have had 60 years to gradually increase that prize money versus all these other divisions that have only been around for 10, I honestly don't think 50 grand is that bad, but it's the shows that are like $1,300 that I really agree. I mean, it's kind of like, what's the point at that point of even doing the show and doing the prep? So I guess my question for you guys is, what do you think the prize money should be in men's physique? So give me like just a regular show, a men's physique show that somebody would do, a pro show to qualify for the Olympia. What should that pay for first place? What should a show like the Arnold Classic pay for first place? Or do you think what they're paying already is fair? Same with the Olympia. What do you think they should pay for first? Or do you think what they're already paying is fair? And honestly, after this whole situation, I'm not even sure if the Arnold is going to have men's physique next year. So not only might they not get a bump in prize money, but the division might not even be there next year. Who knows? Because this whole thing has really seemed to take on quite the life of its own here. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, next up in the news, we got a new physique update from Martin Fitzwater, but it's from 12 weeks out. So obviously we're a lot closer to the Pittsburgh Pro now than 12 weeks out. We're about 8 weeks out right now, but this is a comparison of 12 weeks out from Detroit, where he looked phenomenal last year against Good Vito, and 12 weeks out from this year's Pittsburgh Pro, where I think you can very clearly see some significant improvements and some significant size that Martin has added since that show, which to me is very exciting because, like I said, I think he looked amazing at that Detroit show. And this is going to be the rematch of him and Good Vito in Pittsburgh. We haven't seen them battle again since then. And I thought that was one of the best battles of the year in 2024 for a top 2 call-out, was Martin and Good Vito. And I think when you look at these updates, it's undeniable that Martin has improved significantly even from a year ago at the 12-week out mark from Pittsburgh, which again makes me even more excited to see this Pittsburgh battle. Nick Walker, Good Vito, William Bonac, Michael Crizzo, Martin Fitzwater. And also, not to mention, he's 20 pounds heavier in these updates, which looks to be 20 pounds of maybe even stage weight. And if I remember correctly, one of the judge criticisms of Martin from that Detroit show was thicker, wider lats from the front. And when you look at this front double bicep here, that's exactly the improvement that you see. And I feel like the other comment that they made was a little bit more fullness through the chest. And I'm looking at the most muscular, and I think undeniably his chest looks way fuller, way denser, significantly improved. And again, still has 12 weeks to go. But I think it's hard not to envision Martin as the favorite going into this show, especially based off that Olympia placing. But a guy that has a point to prove. Nick Walker posted a physique update of his quads. He's posted a few updates of his legs here recently where his legs are looking really impressive. That's been a big focal point, a point of criticism, a point that people have been saying he needs to bring up. And I think in this update, they certainly look big. I think there probably is a little bit of mirror distortion going on here. You can kind of see the stretch that the mirror is giving a little bit. But his quads, to me, definitely look bigger. And Nick even said recently on his Mutant in the Mouth podcast that he cannot lose this Pittsburgh Pro. I think his exact words were, "I can't F this up," but the same sentiment is true. So he understands how important this show is, and I think he's really going to bring it here. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. He has something to prove. He knows that this is a very important show for him. This does feel like one of those shows that's truly make or break for his career. After sitting out the 2 Olympias and having this kind of hiatus that he's had, and everybody's been anticipating this comeback, if he wins this show and looks phenomenal, that's a huge burst of momentum for him as far as coming back to the Olympia. Now, if he shits the bed here and he loses this show and loses it in a dramatic fashion, maybe not even top 2, I think his stock drops drastically from there on out. And probably his confidence will too. But Nick seems to recognize that based on what he said on his podcast, based on what I've heard from him lately. And I'm sure the Bob Ciccarello thing put an even bigger chip on his shoulder, and he's got something to prove. So that makes me believe that we're going to see Nick Walker at his best in Pittsburgh, which is what makes me see, these updates from Martin, these updates from Nick, and get excited about the battle that we have to look forward to in May. But let me know who your favorite is going into Pittsburgh. Is it Nick Walker, or is it Martin Fitzwater, or potentially somebody else like Good Vito, Crizzo, even Bonac? And the final story that I have for you guys today, just quickly wanted to include this Terrence Ruffin posing video. You guys know he's making his comeback at the Pittsburgh Pro, and I already did a short version of this video, like a YouTube short. But I said, based on these updates, it really reminds me kind of Logan Franklin in the sense that these updates from Terrence are so good going into Pittsburgh. It makes me think this is going to be the best Terrence that we've ever seen. Like, we were seeing the updates from Logan as we got closer and closer to the Arnold, and he just looked so good in the updates, it seemed almost undeniable. This is the best he's ever looked, and he's going to look awesome on stage, and that's what we saw. And as I'm seeing more and more updates come out from Terrence, and he's clearly getting more and more confident as he's posting them more frequently, and he looks so impressive, I'm getting that same vibe that we might be about to see the best Terrence we've ever seen, the same way we did with Logan Franklin. These updates, I think, are that impressive, and we're still, like I said, 8 weeks out. I think when we see this version of Terrence's physique, which seems to be a bigger, fuller version, refined and conditioned at 3, 2, 1 weeks out, we're going to be talking about the same conversation of, is this the best Terrence is ever going to look? And I think he probably will. Well, not the best that he's ever going to look, but the best that he has ever looked. I just think Terrence looks amazing here, man. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.